On a cold New York night in 1931, the Mafia made a decision that changed the underworld forever. Inside a quiet Coney Island restaurant, Joe the Boss Masseria, one of America's most feared mob leaders, sat playing cards. He believed he was untouchable. He believed he controlled every Sicilian clique, every street, every racket. He had no idea his closest allies were about to betray him. A door creaked. His men stepped outside. Seconds later, the kitchen door exploded open. Gunmen, Luciano's gunmen, flooded into the room and unleashed a roaring storm of bullets so violent the air itself seemed to scream. When it was over, Masseria lay sprawled across the table, playing cards scattered like the last broken pieces of his empire. This wasn't just a hit. It was a declaration of war. The Castellammarese War, one of the bloodiest criminal civil wars in American history, erupted. Bodies were left in alleys, stairwells, tenements, butcher shops, taxis, and street corners. Entire neighborhoods lived in fear as assassins switched sides, bosses vanished, and betrayals festered like open wounds. When the killing finally ended, one name rose above the carnage: Lucky Luciano, a man who would transform disorganized crime into a national criminal government, La Cosa Nostra. Before we go deeper into this hidden history of blood, money, and power, hit that subscribe button. This is the kind of documentary most people will never hear in school. Now, step into the shadows. Veil. Let's remove the veil. For centuries, Sicily was conquered by empire after empire: Romans, Greeks, Arabs, French, Spanish. The government always belonged to outsiders. Sicilians learned to trust no one but themselves. Out of this distrust grew omerta, the code of silence; vendetta, justice through revenge; familia, loyalty stronger than blood. Small protection groups formed in the countryside, offering security for a price. These were not yet global criminals, they were survival clans. But the seeds of mafia power had been planted. When poverty overwhelmed Sicily in the late 1800s, millions fled to America. Among them were men who carried these Sicilian codes in their bones. They didn't intend to build an empire. America gave them the chance. Between 1880 and 1920, Italian immigrants flooded the urban slums of America. Crime became a language of survival. Italian extortionists introduced la mano nera, the black hand, sending letters demanding money. Refuse and we burn your shop. Refuse and someone in your family disappears. These early gangs weren't yet the mafia, but they were the foundation. America's real transformation came with one law. In 1920, the U.S. banned alcohol. In 1920, the mafia became millionaires. Bootlegging required distribution networks, bribed police, muscle, secrecy, loyalty. The Sicilian groups were built for it. Bootlegging turned street gangs into empires. Rivalries exploded into wars. Alcohol made the mafia rich, powerful, and ambitious. In this chaos, Luciano emerged as the kingmaker. Luciano believed unorganized gangs wasted too much money fighting, so he created the Commission, a national council of mafia bosses that functioned like a criminal congress. The Commission divided territories, approved murders, settled disputes, coordinated nationwide business. Luciano didn't just consolidate power, he revolutionized crime. New York became the center of mafia power, divided into 5 families: Gambino, Genovese, Lucchese, Bonanno, and Colombo, with strict hierarchy: boss, underboss, consiglieri, capos, soldiers, associates. They infiltrated labor unions, docks, police precincts, construction companies, gambling operations, nightclubs, trucking routes, political campaigns. For decades, New York was ruled by 2 governments, one legal, one hidden. Al Capone turned Chicago into an empire built on intimidation and bullets. He controlled breweries, brothels, gambling houses, and entire police districts. His most infamous act was the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, where 7 rivals were executed against a brick wall by men dressed as police officers. Capone thrived on fame, but fame became his weakness. The government caught him for tax evasion, yet his legend made the Mafia myth stronger. If you're enjoying this cinematic deep dive, hit that like button. It helps the channel reach more viewers who love true crime storytelling. The Mafia realized violence attracts attention, but influence attracts wealth. They infiltrated unions, teamsters, longshoremen, taxis, hotel workers, construction unions. Controlling unions meant controlling ports, trucking routes, building sites, casino operations, waste management, skyscraper projects. Politicians needed their votes, businesses needed their cooperation, judges needed their silence. This was the true Mafia takeover, quiet, strategic, and profitable. When Vegas casinos rose, the Mafia saw paradise.
They funded casino construction through hidden partners, then skimmed millions off the books. Suitcases of unreported cash flew across state lines each week. Everyone knew the Mafia ran Vegas. No one could prove it, until the government changed the game. For 50 years, the Mafia seemed untouchable. They bribed police, intimidated witnesses, threatened judges, and vanished anyone who talked. The FBI was losing. Agents were frustrated. Wiretaps failed. Cases collapsed. Informants disappeared. Then, in 1970, everything changed with RICO. RICO meant the FBI didn't have to catch a single gangster committing a single crime. They could now charge the entire organization with extortion, murder conspiracies, bribery, narcotics, gambling, union corruption. Suddenly, the Mafia's greatest strength, loyalty, became its weakness. The FBI built entire teams dedicated to long-term surveillance. They planted undercover agents in social clubs, truck depots, union halls, warehouses, restaurants, and even funeral homes. One agent spent 6 years wearing the same cheap shoes, same worn jacket, same sweat-stained shirt so he looked like a real dock worker. Another pretended to be a jewel thief, meeting mobsters at midnight diners and backroom bars. But the true turning point came with wiretaps. Agents drilled holes through walls, ran microphones under floors, tapped phones, hid transmitters in lamps, ashtrays, ventilation ducts, and even in a single light bulb inside a Mafia social club. Conversations thought to be private, orders given, threats made, hits approved, were captured forever. Take care of him. He's finished. Make it look like a robbery. For the first time, the FBI heard the Mafia's true voice. The surveillance rooms became war rooms. Agents spent nights transcribing tapes by hand, pausing, rewinding, replaying, decoding Sicilian slang, identifying voices, mapping hierarchies. The walls of FBI offices became covered in photos, arrows, names, timelines, giant webs connecting bosses, soldiers, bookies, lawyers, judges, politicians, and union men. Slowly, the invisible empire became visible. Then came the informants. Men who had sworn to take secrets to the grave suddenly flipped to save their own lives. Sammy the Bull Gravano, Joseph Valachi. Others followed, broken by fear, betrayal, or long prison sentences. The biggest Mafia trials in U.S. history followed: the Commission case, the Pizza Connection case, the Teamsters corruption trials. Courtrooms became theaters of downfall. Bosses who once ordered hits with the whisper now sat handcuffed, listening to their own voices echoed from FBI tapes. Some cried, some cursed, some sat stone-faced. But the era of untouchable Mafia bosses was over. RICO didn't just arrest gangsters. It dismantled families. Entire organizations collapsed in a single court ruling. Power structures that took 50 years to build fell in 5. America had finally struck back. John Gotti became the final shining symbol of old-school mafia glamour. But even he couldn't outrun Rico. His underboss flipped. Wiretaps sealed his fate. Gotti was sentenced to life in prison. The last mafia celebrity had fallen. The mafia today. Quiet, smaller, but far from dead. The mafia learned from its destruction. No more flashy suits. No more TV cameras. No more open wars. But they still exist. Construction fraud. Online scams. Illegal gambling. Extortion. International drug networks. La Cosa Nostra is weaker, but not gone. It is simply returned to the shadows where it always operated best. If you want more deep cinematic true crime documentaries like this, subscribe, like, and turn on notifications. It helps us create more hidden history investigations like this one.